build once and deploy everywhere. That's the dream. And the Uno platform makes that dream a reality. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the Uno platform and how it allows C# developers to build applications that can be deployed virtually anywhere with just one project. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Tim Corey, and I work to make learning software development easier. I have over 800 videos here on YouTube, including 7 full courses to help you take your next step in your career. I also have paid courses on IamTimCorey.com, and those courses fund my free content so that everyone can have a great education in C#, not just those who can afford it. Now, let's get started with looking at what Uno is. So here is platform.uno. That's the web URL. And there's a reason why they call it Uno Platform, because there is so much more than just a toolkit or a framework or a system. This is a complete platform. It's much more than just a small little plugin for Visual Studio. So this is the system that helps you build cross-platform .NET applications very, very quickly. And we're going to see how to do that today. There's a lot going on here. I would encourage you to go to platform.uno.com to see more about it. There is so much here today that I have really struggled with how to create this video, because it's not like I'm just trying to introduce you to a little bit or even a system. This is a full platform, and so there's a lot we're going to talk about and not really go in depth into because there's just not time. It will take me multiple videos to even scratch the surface of all that Uno provides. And we're thinking about possibly doing that. So I've been talking with Uno and working through some questions that I have and ways to make this work better for you and give you a good overview of what Uno provides and get you going so you can actually build real things with their platform. Now, I do want to talk through something, and that is, if you notice in the upper right-hand corner, by the way, this is not a paid video. This is a free video I'm doing because I believe in this product. So there is a pricing page. You might say, oh no, Tim, you're telling me about something I can only use if I pay for it. That's not true. The entire platform is free. So we're going to talk about what's paid and what's not. But Hot Reload, the Uno Platform Toolkit, Hot Design is only a 30-day free trial. So we get these two for free, the Hot Reload and the Uno Platform Toolkit. You might think, well, that's not very much. Actually, that's everything you need to build your applications, to deploy your applications to multiple platforms. That's everything. The real difference between the free version and the paid version is this Hot Design. So Hot Design is a runtime designer that we'll see in this video, but it's kind of like it makes your life easier, but it's not necessary. So you can do everything for free, everything. And this is a community edition, which used to be that you had to have, the usual Microsoft version of community, which is under $1 million of total revenue and 5 or less developers. That's not true anymore. This is completely free to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a massive company. It doesn't matter if you make billions of dollars. You can use Uno entirely for free. And down here in their blog post, actually, if you go to their blog post with a .NET 6 announcement, you can come down here and see our free and open source pledge. So at Uno Platform, we believe that everything you need to build and run your cross-platform app, what we consider core, should be free and open source. We're taking a clear stance. Uno Platform itself, the foundation of your application development workflow, will always be open source and free under one of the most permissive licenses, Apache 2.0. Okay. But here's the thing for me. And I actually met with a CEO. We talked about it. And I said, this is one of the things that really encourages me about this particular open source project. And that is they do have a sustainability model. You see, we've seen other packages where they've built this great package everyone relies on, and then they go, we need money to keep going. And the whole community goes, oh no, we're so upset because you're kind of doing a bait and switch. And they're not really, because they're just doing that for the new versions. The old versions still work. That's a side note. But it does cause some tension. It causes some frustration. It causes some feelings of, I'm not getting the thing I thought I was going to get. But with this, they do have their base platform. And base is a bad word because it's so much. It's everything pretty much is free except for that stuff on top. So everything you need to build and deploy your application is all free. And I said, yes, but we also have a sustainability model that's going to keep us going, that's going to keep Uno free. It's going to keep our company growing. It's going to keep our system, supplying what we need to keep this platform going for you. And so they're following the Red Hat model, which is they're providing advanced optional tooling to accelerate your workflow. And they also provide paid enterprise support for the platform itself. So those two things are their sustainability model. So you come up here and you look at their pricing, $39 a month or $390 a year. If you were to pay for the Uno Platform Studio Pro, which the big deal difference is hot design. That's different than hot reload, by the way. Hot reload's free and will be. Hot design is something additional that we'll see. So all of the stuff you need is free. I just want to keep that very clear. Now, there's a lot of stuff in the platform. There's a lot of stuff. This is where, this graphic kind of starts to get you in the, put your feet in the water of all the stuff they offer. But then it goes into, hey, you can build this on any IDE. Do you want, Visual Studio, VS Code, Writer? Sure. It'll build in all of those. You can do C# or XAML for the UI development, whichever works better for you. You can do state management. You can do one project for 6 platforms. There's a whole bunch of extra stuff that comes along with it. There's extra toolkits and all the rest they offer that they'll show you how to also use, including extensions. So lots of really cool stuff they offer, and they have a lot of examples to show you how to use these various things. So their docs are getting better by the day. Docs are always hard, and they're doing a good job of getting those to the place where they need to be, where it's really, really helpful to find all the information you need. So this is Uno. This is what Uno does. If you go to platform.uno, you will see all of this stuff. Now, let's get started in Visual Studio. We're actually going to close this out, and we're going to go to extensions. This is how you get Uno. So we're going to start with, you browse for Uno. And you find it, you'll see Uno Platform. And this is where, quite frankly, I'm in love with how they have made changes to their installer. In fact, I met with them, it may have been about a year ago, and I was like, boy, the thing that really I struggle with is I had a hard time getting up and going. And the reason for that is because cross-platform development is not easy. It's extremely hard because it's not just, I'm building C# for the web and I have to understand browsers, which is already complicated. But no, I'm building it for the web, but I'm also building it for Windows. So I got to figure out Windows desktop and deployment scenario. But then also for Mac, which if you're had to deploy to a Mac and test on a Mac, and I've got to deploy to iOS, and how does that work? And testing for that, and Android emulators, and which packages to use, and all the rest of the stuff that comes in all these different platforms that, quite frankly, Microsoft doesn't even control. So it's hard to get it all right and get it all in sync. This installer has done a great job at doing that for you. All you need to do is install it. Now, before I do, I've actually made this really hard for the system. Go to Tools, Get Tools and Features. I used to have Uno installed. I uninstalled it. I got rid of everything, and I even uninstalled the .NET Multi-Platform App UI Development, also known as MAUI. This is going to be needed in order for Uno to work. It needs the MAUI workload. It's not installed in my version of Visual Studio. that's okay. We're going to hit install. So this will install my changes that I need. Now I'm going to close Visual Studio in order to actually start the installation process. It's going to give me a UAC prompt once I hit modify. So it's going to pop up. Oh, doesn't need to, I guess. So it's going to install in Visual Studio. Once it's done, that's all I need to do in order to get started. Now, there's a lot more that needs to be installed. I need to have the MAUI information installed. I need to have an emulator set up. I need to have packages installed. Let's go ahead and start Visual Studio again. I need to have all this stuff installed that I don't have. Well, what's going to happen is it's going to do it for us. It's going to do it in the background. So let's go new project. We're going to choose Uno Platform App. Okay. We're going to hit next, and I'm going to call this Uno Demo. Now, here's where the first question I had, one of the first questions I have in the process comes in. You're going to see this is place solution and project in the same directory. Normally, this is unchecked. Normally, for any other project you have, this is unchecked. But there's a legacy bug in the system. They're actually working with Microsoft to work on fixing, because it's not just an Uno side thing. But with the Uno project specifically, you want to check this box. Otherwise, it'll give you an error, which is great that it gives you an error. But you want to check this box and put the solution and project in the same directory. So just know that's a little bit of a quirk. Hit create. Now what it's going to do is going to create my project, and it's going to start up the template wizard. Now, this template wizard is amazing. I keep saying amazing, but this is pretty amazing. So this is, hey, let's start with an Uno project. And if you want, you can start with a blank project, which is on the left-hand side here, the preset, blank project. That's the simplest you can go, okay? But you probably are going to miss a lot of the stuff that Uno provides. So what it's going to do is show you what it provides and allow you to choose things. Let's go to the recommended. So .NET 9. Now, why .NET 9 and why not .NET 8 as well? Because .NET 8 is the LTS, right? The long-term support. Well, .NET 9 had some features that they needed that weren't going to be in .NET 8. So it has some tooling fixes and updates in .NET 9 they needed. Therefore, .NET 9 is the first one they support. So .NET 9 and then .NET 10 will be coming out soon. It'll go in here as well. But when you're doing a file new project, you should start on the latest version of .NET. Yes, you should. So, not a problem. Platforms. What do you want to support? Android, iOS, WebAssembly, desktop apps, and then unchecked is the Windows App SDK. Now, this is new to Uno 6.0, and it's, notice in the lower left-hand corner, it says Skia for all of these. And what happened is they actually changed how they do their rendering and use Skia for their rendering for all the platforms now so that it's much faster. But not everything supports Skia. Some of the Windows App SDK libraries don't support Skia, therefore you go with the native version. However, even if you are deploying to a Windows desktop, unless you have a real need and know for sure that you need the native app SDK desktop project, just choose this one over here on the left, the desktops, which enables it for Windows, Mac, and Linux desktops. Now, Linux desktops, I believe it's Ubuntu and Debian. So those are the ones they support. Linux is a little weird when it comes to rendering desktop apps, and so there's different flavors, but they do support Ubuntu and Debian for Linux desktops. So these are great defaults. Leave these alone. Now, I was talking again to the developers, and I said, well, what if you don't want all of them? They recommended that you at least include the desktop version. So even if you would say, I just want the iOS and Android, yes, but for development purposes, include the desktop because it's much faster to develop on a desktop app because of the fact it doesn't have to go through abstraction layers or emulators or something else in order to run your app for debugging purposes. So just note that's the case. This is probably the fastest one to run on your machine during the debugging process. Therefore, keep that one at least. Okay, notice WebAssembly. So you can deploy the same app to WebAssembly, run it on the web, which is a really nice feature. Presentation layer. So when you're talking about the UI framework to use, well, you've got a couple options here. You've got MVVM, which is kind of the standard, has been the standard for WPF, UWP, and other XAML type projects, or the new MVU, Model View Update, although with Uno, they actually went a little bit beyond and made their own on top of MVU. That is MVUX, or Model View Update Extended Design Pattern. So when it comes to their samples, a lot of their samples will use MVUX. So that's their system, and they have documentation how it works, and probably a future video will go into more about the MVUX and also MVU, so you can kind of compare. But those are your options. Now notice that none is not selected, and that's because I believe it's some of the things we have selected need to have, down here under extensions, need to have a framework used. If you do presets, you can choose none. I'm sorry, blank for your preset. You can choose none, but then certain things won't spin up right. And we'll see that in the future. Okay, markup. Do you want XAML or C#? Now you can choose to build your UI off of C# syntax. And for those of you who don't love XAML, and I get that, that may feel like a good option, and that can be a great option for you if you like. However, when it comes to the hot design, again, that's different than hot reload. Hot design is that runtime editor. We'll see it in a bit. Hot design only works with XAML. It does not work with C# markup. So that's a bit of a difference there. So I would say choose XAML anyway, but you have your option here. Theme. You can choose Material or Fluent theme, and you can also have theme services for switch between light, dark, and system themes, as well as you can import the Uno DSP theme, which overrides Material colors. You can actually bring in your own themes with the Material builder, and then just say, hey, override the Material with this theme I imported. Therefore, you have to do a whole lot of fiddly changes in order to change each individual color or anything else. You just bring a theme in using Material Builder. Okay, so extensions. This is kind of like ASP.NET Core type, defaults. Dependency injection, configuration. This is an additional one, localization. But these are things that you know and love, these first two. Localization is awesome because if you're going to build an app, you should probably localize it for different languages. Then it comes to talking to HTTP, and they say, hey, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do basic, refit, Kyoto, or none? We'll probably do a video at some point on Kyoto. So you get to choose which style you want. Now you can say none and do your own later. And when they put these in, what they're going to do is scaffold out how to configure it and then give you an example of how to use it. That way you can see, well, how would I use, if I choose refit, how would I choose refit? And how would that look and work? So they're going to give you examples in this project. And this builder, by the way, is super helpful because of the fact that it gives you examples of all these different things to get started on it. It puts it in your app and gives you an example of how to use it. So this app probably wouldn't be one I'd go into production with. I'd probably start with the blank or close to blank and just add a few things in. And then I would manually put some of these things in because of the sample code it created. Or maybe I just create the whole thing and then take the sample code out. But either way, you have a starting point. And you can create a new project, look at the differences, and go, oh, that's how you implement refit. That's how you implement basic. That's how you implement Kyoto. So really cool stuff. Navigations. So do you want to use regions, which is navigate using regions versus the default WinUI frame navigation? Logging. Do you want to log to the console, the default, or this is especially helpful if you're going to be on mobile or other platforms where you don't have access to look at the console, etc. Serolog. Love Serolog. So That's a great one for production, is to put Serolog in and just change the feature right there. Notice if I change this, there's now a new preset, and it's called custom set of options, as opposed to this is the recommended. No, this is mine. Okay, so nice to be able to switch back and forth there and see what the differences are. Features. So this is where they start to surface all the things that they offer that maybe you'd miss otherwise. So the Uno toolkit for additional controls and helper classes. Maui embedded. So if you want to embed Maui controls and bring them in, you can do that here. A server project for API and hosting your WebAssembly project. You could add that in if you want. A PWA manifest that allows you to create your WebAssembly project and have it work offline using a PWA. Visual Studio Code debugging, that just sets up a .vs code folder with some stuff in it. It does not hurt to have one of those. That way it helps you get started with debugging in Visual Studio Code. And then the media element for adding the assets necessary for a media element in your app. Renderer, you want to do Skia, if at all possible, because Skia is the way forward. It is the one that's going to be more performant and allow for a much better experience in your app. If you decide to choose native, when coming back up here to platforms, you'll notice it says native in the corner for all of these, except for this one, Skia. We would change over to be native instead, like that. Okay, so that's how you would change over and what would happen if you chose down here to go native instead of Skia. We're going to stick with Skia for our build today. Okay, authentication. How do you want to bring authentication in? Custom, MSAL, OIDC, web authentication. It's up to you how you bring us in, and they'll help put in the connection points for that. The application itself, what do you want to name it? So for here, I would call this DevForge. So com.devforge.uno demo. It's probably great. And then for testing purposes, do you want to add unit tests? Do you want to add UI tests or not? And then for the pipeline, do you want to have no pipeline? Do you want to have an Azure pipeline or a GitHub Actions pipeline? It will set up the tooling necessary for any of those options. Okay, that's a lot. That is a very lot of information to start off with. And this is why I struggled so much with how do I do this video even? Because there is an overwhelming amount of information because of the fact that Uno is not just some kind of, plugin or system. It's a whole platform with tons of options. We're going to touch on the surface today of all those options so you know it exists and know you can start digging deeper into the areas that are important to you. And then if you say, hey, Tim, I want to know more about X, we got a suggestion site for that. You can let me know. And we'll figure out if we can get more content to you and get you a deeper knowledge of, the particular parts you're looking for in Uno. Okay, let's hit create. So now we're actually going to create a project. So that whole process was to create this project. Now, we're done. We can close out of this next steps. You can follow these next steps for creating a variant of the counter tutorial. That's really nice. It says, hey, we found, do you want to follow along and create a counter app using one of these systems? Now, before we close out of this, notice up here it says, we got an error. Must be it's broken, right? No, it's not broken. It says Uno check found problems with your development environment. Do you want to fix? Well, yeah. I can learn more too. If I learn more, it pops up just a web page with more information. By the way, this command line tool, which is how I first installed it, and it's amazing. You just copy this command right here to install Uno check, and then go to your command line and run Uno check, and keep running it until it doesn't find any more errors. It'll fix the errors it can. It can't fix every error, and this is where we install the extension first. It can actually fix more errors. We're gonna hit fix. So it gives me a UAC prompt. and now it's running Uno check, and it says, oh, we want to install the Uno or the install or update the Android SDK package. Do you want to do that? Yeah, I do. Hit yes. And goes, oh, okay, let's go ahead and do that. All right. So it's working on installing the things I need. So in the background, it said, hey, we found that you're missing some stuff. Let's go ahead and get you set up. So it's going to do the work necessary to get that all set up. And it's going to go through and check a whole bunch of stuff. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff. Is Hyper-V configured? Is the long path for Windows enabled? Is the Edge WebView 2 working? What's the .NET SDK? Is it this one? The emulators, all this stuff needs to be configured. If some of it's not configured, it's going to set it up. Now, with this, there may still be things you have to do. So I would encourage you, and you don't have to be as miserable towards Uno as I was. You can go to Tools and Features and install the Maui extension. Like, it's going to need to still do that. It's still checking the background, I believe. But you can also go and once the Android Studio is installed, you can install an emulator and get that set up. So I've been kind of miserable to Uno and have not done those things. And it does say here, I might need, based on your solution, you might need to install extra components for the full development experience. So I hit install. And it says, hey, we're going to go ahead and install the Maui platform. Okay, so this is going to take up additional space. I need to hit yes. So it's going to do this. So like I said, you can do it on your own and not try and poke Uno and make it do all the work. But if you want to, it will. And so it's got, those errors are not errors as in Uno's not working. Those errors are, we found things in your environment that need to be updated. We're going to go ahead and do that. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to fix these errors. It's going to install these things that I need and set me up for success. And I really appreciate that. As you saw from both Uno Check and then with this, there's a lot of stuff that needs to get installed. And they can be complicated. And trying to figure out, okay, I have to install this thing and then this thing and this thing. And oh, the versions are a problem. Uno Check takes care of that for you. So I'm a huge fan of the getting started process because it takes the complexity, and there's a lot of complexity when working with 6, 7, 8 different systems. And they take all that complexity and they say, hey, let's clean it all up and make it a whole lot easier for you. So now we have our solution. We're going to allow this for the networks. We got to accept the Android license agreement. We have to say yes on the UAC prompt. It's going to install the Android stuff now. Again, a complicated system that they're taking care of for you. So now we have Uno installed, and we have, right now it says Pixel Pro. I had a previous emulator, and so it's probably just using that. But if you want to create your own, you can do that. You can create your own emulator and use it instead. And to do that, go to Tools, and then go to Android, and you're going to go to Android Device Manager. And once that UAC prompt pops up, then you're going to get your list. You can say New and create a new emulator. So I created one. I gave it a Pixel 7 Pro with 4 gigabytes of RAM, just to have something easy to work with. But when it comes to Uno, I do want to point out this drop down here, change that to desktop. Uno Demo Desktop. That will be the fastest experience for development. I want to show you everything in this project, but we're going to start by just hitting run. So again, I've chosen the desktop because it's going to be the fastest experience for getting started. So we hit run on this, and it's going to compile everything and run everything, and then we're going to start with our desktop app. Okay, let me drag it over here. Here is our desktop app. Notice we have this little bar up here. We can move around. This is going to be really important to understand. So the simple demo is enter your name, Tim, go to second page, it says Tim, right to first page, okay? That's the simple demo. Now, we can actually modify this page by going into the code, making changes, and seeing them reflected on the page. But we can also use and that's hot reload. Okay, so hot reload would allow us to make changes to this page and see them by going to the Solution Explorer and then coming in here to the page, which is under presentation, and we can come into the page and make the changes we want. So here's the XAML for that page. Okay, so right now there's not a lot in here that's interesting, but we could enter your given name. How about that? And hit save. And now if we clear this out, it says enter your given name. That's the hot reload. That's free. That's included. That's always going to be free. That's part of Visual Studio. That's part of how this works. So what we have here is this little flame is hot design. That's something different. Let's click that button. When we do, we get a different view. Now, if we maximize this, you'll notice the flame has changed color. We can move this around. The flame indicates when it's fully colored in is that we're in the hot design. Now, this is the paid upgrade. This is you don't have to have it, but it's nice to have. Okay, so what is this? Well, right now in the center pane, we have our running app. We can see the actual app, and it is running. This is not a design time experience. This is a runtime experience. But we can also make changes to this. So for example, we can over here to common, we can say, hey, you know what? Text block. Let's drag that on and put it in the stack panel above this right here. We can say over here on the right, we can say the text is going to be hello world. Okay, so now we have a new element, hello world, that's above our text box before we have our button. Now, notice when we select this on the right, we have our property pane, but there's not a lot of stuff in it. That's because it's using the smart pane, and it's only giving us the things that it thinks probably are going to be useful to us. We can search for something, or we can go to all. And if you notice, all scrolls a lot because there's a lot of things you can do on that text box. And you can use this and search for what you want, or you can come back here to smart and just use the ones like maybe we want to center the text. So now it's centered, okay? Or we want to search for something. Maybe we'd search for foreground. And I somehow tabbed off it. Foreground, we can change this and search for orange. We want dark orange. And all of a sudden now our wording is dark orange. If we clear the search out now, notice in the smart list, we also have foreground. It wasn't there before. Why is it there now? Because of the fact we have something in it. So because we changed this foreground, it's now going to be in the smart list. So if anything has changed, it'll be in the smart list. Or if anything is pretty standard, you probably want to use this, it'll be in the smart list. Otherwise, it's in the all, and you can search for it or just scroll until you find it. So this is hot design. So I want to be very clear here that if you go move us off a screen and we look at the stack panel now, we see that we have a text block that has a foreground of dark orange, text alignment of center that says hello world. So that's new. It modified my code. That's what hot design does, is that not only is it allowing us to see what would this look like if we did it this way or that way, but it's also actually putting the changes into our code, even though the code is running. So this is different than other designers where, like maybe in the web where you do the F12 and you modify something on the web page and you say, oh, I like that look. You have to copy out the CSS and all the changes and then paste that into your project and reload and see if it worked. This is not like that because this is actually modifying your actual code. So then the next time you run this app, it will look like this. So This is why hot design is so awesome, is you can do this. Now, notice I can't actually type in here because it says, well, no, you're going to design that, right? So instead, what I can do, by the way, I can change given back just your name. I can come up here in this little bar that we keep moving around, and there's a play button. By the way, it's also an undo. So you undo changes that you've made. We can do a play button here where now I hit play, I can actually use this. I can say Tim and go to the second page. And it goes to the second page and I go, ooh, I don't like that. Let's hit pause here. Let's select Tim. And notice that the font size is 14. That's way too small. We want 36. Well, now it says Tim. Woohoo. So we've got something that is, a bit better. And by the way, this text right here, we can do bindings. So this right now is bound to entity.name. You can change where it's bound to. Instead of entity.name, you could bind it to something else. You had a different entity. This is where MVUX comes in. But you could also make it a value, and it has a straight value. You could also come here under advanced and have converters and other things in here for fallback value and all the rest. There's also, if you have a value, you can, it's already bound, sorry. If we add another text box, let's go back to, let's hit run here, go back to here and hit pause. For this, we can actually change to be a smart text box. We can say, hey, when it's on a small screen, say this. When it's on a narrow screen, say this. When it's on a normal screen, we can change the sizing here of the various elements and change, okay, on the widest width, I want you to say this. On the narrowest width, I want you to say this. And change it based upon the width of the screen, so be responsive. There's lots of cool things this designer can do. And the result is it creates for you the right WPF code. This makes writing your WPF code much easier. So I have found that sometimes I don't remember how to do a binding or I don't remember how to do a smart text or something like that. I can come in here with hot design, do it in hot design, and then look at the code and go, oh yeah, that's how you do it. And have my example now. So that's pretty cool. But so far I've been using it on this grid that's pretty large, right? Well, over here in this designer settings, we can change the layout. Right now it's set to custom. We can change it to, what does it look like on a YS desktop? Well, it looks like that. If it's on 1920 by 1080, by the way, that's zoomed out so you can see the whole thing on the page. If you wanted to, there's the, we could change it to 100. Well, Tim messed that up. So, yeah, you can do it. I believe in you. You just need to change that to a 0. There we go. That's 100%. Tim really can use controls. I'm sure of it. Or auto fit though. And that puts the whole thing on the screen. But you can also look at a laptop screen or, that's a weird laptop. It's a wide laptop, but it's not that huge. It's a smaller laptop. But then you have tablet or mobile, and you can kind of figure out these layouts or just do custom based upon whatever size you're developing for. And then it gives you what's going to look like at that size. And notice it is responsive. But again, WPF can be, XAML can be very responsive in how it's laid out. As long as you're not trying to do the, this pixel to the left and this pixel to the top and kind of, docking it that way. You want to make for responsive designs in order to get good layouts. But this tool will help you do that. Now, prepare yourself. Prepare your eyes to be blinded, but it does have the ability to switch themes. Okay, so I'm going to click this toggle theme to go from my system theme, which is a dark theme, over to light theme. Again, you've been warned. There's a light theme. There's what it would look like in light theme, and you can see what it's going to look like at the various sizes and different pages and etc. Let's go back to dark, because that makes me so much happier. So with all of that, That's what Hot Design is. Again, this is the paid version. You get 30 days for free. This is the paid version. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but I will tell you that it's one of the tools that I have seen where I'm like, yes, I will definitely use this. And yes, it is worth it if I'm actually going to build anything of serious consequence to use Hot Design because it does make me faster. All right. It makes me a faster developer. If it saves even an hour a month, it's worth $39. It's going to save more than that. And again, if you're using this for any type of real application. Now, if you're just trying it out, if you're just playing around, if you're just building something where you don't have a lot of money to spend, you don't have to spend anything. It's all free as long as you're not using this. Okay? Just don't use that. And then you're good. You can still come in here and make the modifications you want. You can still make the changes you want and say, hey, you know what? I want to change this from dark orange to something else. Do it in here and then see it reflected in your app. So this, again, making changes manually to WPF and then saving, that's Hot Reload. That's built in for free. Hot Design is where we actually had that UI we can edit in, and it changes our code the other direction. Okay, so I want to show you that. Now, we don't have time to go into a whole lot of depth because of the fact that there's so much in here, and we could geek out for days on this, but I do want to point out how this is constructed. So this is using their demo is using the concept of the MVUX because that's what we chose. So you'll see that we have things like title and then name, which has a state. Go to a second, which navigates to the second page and it passes in the new entity. And then the second page will just capture that entity. That's all it's doing. And a second page binds to the entity.name. Like this is all MVUX, and it allows for the built-in style of binding for the XAML, and it allows us to quickly bind our models to our pages. So that's what it's using. And I just want to point that out. And again, we can go into more detail about MVUX and how it works in the future, but that's the presentation layer. There's a lot of stuff in here, for example, services, caching. It shows us how to do caching of this weather report. And it kind of shows us how to set this up, how to use this, and how to access it, and so on. So these are good examples to get you started on various things. Now, if you're familiar with mobile development, just know if you're not familiar with mobile development is hard because of the fact there's so much to know to get started. Okay, you have to know about app manifest. You have to know about package manifest. You have to know about emulators and deployment systems and all the rest. There's a lot going on with it, but this gives you examples of how to set these things up and get started. Okay, under strings, there is the resources with the translations so that you can do localization. It's got an example here of English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese to get you started in how to work with that concept of localization in your app. So we have in our app the CS Proj. I do want to point this out because this is different. This is different. In fact, if you come here and look, that right there, Project SDK is Uno.SDK. It's not Microsoft's SDK. So this is totally different because of the fact they're doing so much to customize this thing. Now, notice here under target frameworks, and this is very familiar, if you've used different frameworks, but we're targeting Android, iOS, browser WASM, desktop. Now, here is a pro tip from one of the developers. He said, when you do a build, it's going to do a smart build and just build what you're working on. So if you're working on desktop, it's going to build just the desktop. But when you do a rebuild, it's going to rebuild everything. Make sure it works for Android, iOS, browser, and desktop. That can take longer. One of the things you can do is you can copy this line, paste it down below, and then comment it out. Okay, so comment this line out, which my commenting is not working, so I'll just do it manually. Make sure you actually close the comment too. So now you have a copy of this because you're going to want to put this back when you're done. But then you can come in here and get rid of these and just have the .NET 9 desktop. That way when you do a rebuild, it'll be faster. And again, this is just for development. This is not for what you go into production with because you won't have, again, Android or iOS or WASM. But for development, when you're getting things up and running, you're getting started and do a lot of debugging and trying things out, that we're gonna need to reload the project. Yeah, we'll do that. But what that'll do is that will make your whole system faster so you can build things out faster. And when you're ready, you take out this line and put back in this line. Okay, in here, we also have things like the display name, the app verification, that probably should look familiar. We have the display version, the application version, the application publisher. We can change all these if you want. Now, down here is a section that's probably new, Uno features. You probably haven't seen something like this before. Usually there's much more kind of ceremony around something. But Uno features is just a semicolon separated list of the features that are installed with this application. Now, this is what we chose based upon that installer. And if you don't want something, you could get rid of it by just deleting it. Now, you have to delete also the source code that goes along with it. But if you wanted to add something, you would just paste it in here. What this does, let's go under dependencies, packages. Let's choose, let's look at the toolkit. So we have here the toolkit. And then over here, we'll see that we have the toolkit for WinUI and also a toolkit WinUI.material. Because when you put toolkit over here, it said, yeah, we also have material. Therefore, we're going to bring in the package for WinUI.material as well. So it's smart enough to know how to add these different things. And that way you can just say, hey, I want to add logging, paste in here, and all of a sudden you get the correct packaging for that. Now, you still have to add all the code, but the packaging itself is brought in with these features. So again, when you're building an app and you're like, oh, I didn't add in, I don't know, logging. Okay, well, then you just create a new project, add the logging you want, maybe Serolog, and then compare and go, oh, I need to add these two lines in order to get logging and log to Serolog. And it will add those things for you. So really cool. It's different than what you would see in a normal CSproj file, but this will allow you to work with Uno in the way that it needs to in order to build these out. Now, there's a platforms folder here. That platforms folder has all of the platform-specific things that you might need. So yes, there are some additional platform-specific things that, again, that's why there's so much that goes into building a mobile app besides just, I want to build a mobile app. You've got to set up a lot of extra things, and that's where you would do anything that's specific to, for example, Android would go in here. And for the most part, your code will work across the various platforms, but there are certain things where you're going to have to build, code that's just for Android or code that's just for iOS, or certain images or other settings would go into one folder versus all of them. And so that's where these folders allow you to put your content for just a specific thing in that particular folder. It used to be various projects. We used to have an Uno demo.android, an Uno demo.iOS, and now it's all in one. We just use the folders for it. So again, so much stuff in here that it's hard to even show you the surface level of what the Uno platform provides, but that's a start at the overview. Now, if this is a Visual Studio experience, the Visual Studio experience, in my opinion, is one of the best experiences for developing with C#. But if you're on VS Code, this will still work. If you're on JetBrains Writer, this will still work. There will be a couple of differences, especially around the concept of that file new project experience. So Rider does have a wizard, but it's not quite the same because they can't control everything the same way they can with Visual Studio. And VS Code, I don't believe, even has a wizard because that's not how VS Code works as a code editor. But they've got you. So if we come over here and we open up a new browser tab, and we're going to say is new.platform.uno. So if you're not on Visual Studio, but you want to have that same cool experience of going through and configuring your project, go to new.platform.uno. And what it's going to do is say, hey, what's the name of your project? Let's call this Demo 2. We're not actually going to build this. We hit Start, and what is this? This is the actual wizard we walked through. Okay? And we can go here and say, you know what? I want to have the media element. I want to have a server. I want to go to extensions, and let's use Seralog, and let's change it to DevForge, which is my company name. And we go to testing, and let's add unit testing, sure. And let's add a GitHub Actions. So I've configured it, right? I've changed it. And we say create. Well, how's it going to create? Because it's on the web. When we do, it just gives us this box right here that says, here's a .NET new command. That's the .NET command line. Well, you just run this command with, notice it said demo 2. That's the name of the project I gave it. Recommended is what it starts with. And then it says, okay, add the server, add continuous integration with GitHub, add the media element, add logging with Seralog, add tests, unit tests specifically, and the ID should be com.devforge.demo2. You just copy this, go to your command line and run it, and it's going to create that project for you. And then you can work with, again, Rider or VS Code, or if you really wanted to, Visual Studio, and it would just work. Okay, it would just work like we have the same starting point as we have in Visual Studio after going through that wizard. So new.platform.uno will get you started there. So that's the Uno platform. That's the start of cross-platform development. Again, it deploys to Windows. It deploys to Mac desktop. It deploys to Linux desktop. It deploys to the web with WebAssembly. It deploys to iOS and to Android. So this deploys pretty much everywhere. So your C# code runs pretty much anywhere, and it runs very quickly. So I would encourage you to check it out. I would encourage you, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. What do you want to see more of about Uno? How do you want to see us take the next steps in learning more about Uno and what it can do? I'm sure we'll have more content coming up because there's so much to dive into that I just can't wait to show you. All right. So thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.